All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a Harley motor, which is kind of what I do. Been doing this stuff for years. Today I'm going to be building a twin cam Harley-Davidson engine. I want to share a few things, what years are good, what years are bad, what good cranks are, what bad cranks are, their issues, their fixes. So I'll be as quick and to the point as I can with this, and let's get at it. All right, here's my 2001 Dyna T-Sport. We got the engine apart here. We're going to pull this engine out. We're going to do a few things, and we're going to talk about when they started taking shortcuts, what years good cranks and bad cranks, stuff like that were. So they started making the twin cam in 1999. And from 1999 to 2002, when they first came out with the twin cams, they have on the other side, they have Timken bearings. If you're familiar with Harley-Davidson engines, you do Timken bearing upgrades. These years, 99 to 02, had factory Timken bearings. And then after that, they started to try to save money and put roller bearings in there, which don't live as long, and yeah, you have a lot of that kind of bad bottom end bearing issues. So this motor's coming out because it's got a bad crank. I've got another video, check that out, and the crank run out is horrible. So run out on a crank is this pin here. So when you put a dial indicator on it, it's how much it moves. So the big issue is once you start making horsepower and having, when they got bad bottom ends, the run out starts moving and it causes all kinds of issues, vibration, tear stuff up. So anyway, this engine here in my 2001, this is a 2005 twin cam engine that I built a big bore for it. And it lasts about 20,000 miles, and then it scissored the crank. So it just totally goes out of balance, and things really mess up. So the cranks, let's see, here's a crank. This is a Screaming Eagle crank. And it's basically the issue you have is that is a pressed in pin, and then it kind of turns and then just throws everything out of whack. So I have a roots blower that I plan on putting on an engine here. So here is the original 2001 Timken bearing engine. So this one had 80,000 kilometers on it when I bought the bike. I took it out just thinking I'd put a hot rod engine in it. I just finished testing the run out on this one. It's all within spec after 80,000 kilometers, where this engine here after 20,000 just shifted the flywheel and just kind of killed itself. So I'm going to be pulling that out. I will post the years of the crank specs up. Super important, especially if you're an aggressive rider, you like to shift down aggressively. That's kind of what ends up scissoring the cranks, and you lose your bottom end as soon as you start making some power. You end up with some issues. So ideally, like the shovel head stuff, the pan head stuff, like, all the old boys, they know what that stuff's all about. Evolution, I have an Evolution engine. I will just cut over to it. Here's my Evolution engine. This is an S&S Evolution, and if you can see these lifter blocks on the Evolutions and the shovel heads, the old ones, and one of the common things with the Harley is you have a lifter failure and everything, you blow your lifter apart, and worst case scenario, you take this complete lifter block out and you change it, which is far cheaper than buying a new bottom end. And if we go to the twin cam, here's the twin cam. So the lifters actually ride inside the bottom of the engine. So if you do have lifter failure, then your engine case is damaged. So you can't just pull that lifter block out and swap it out. You got to change the whole bottom case, or you buy oversized lifters and you bore that stuff out. And it's a big gong show. So I like the Evos because of that feature, where if you have to repair it, you can actually pull parts out and replace parts. And with the older Evo stuff, most of all that stuff has Timken bearings. They've got really true, good, stout running crank systems. On these, this engine here is a 2005, which is a roller bearing, and it lasted about 20,000 kilometers, and I scissored the flywheels. So that means the crank this pinion moves around, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the other side, the same thing, and it just throws everything out of whack, and it just vibrates, and it just shakes itself apart and destroys the engine. So I'm building a new engine for that, and I'm going to tell you what are the good years and what are the bad years. I'll post that up right on the corner here. So if you look through that little list, you can see what years are good. So this is the original motor. This is a 2001, so it has a Timken bearing bottom end, and it has the good crank in it. And it had 80,000 kilometers. I just finished checking all the tolerances on this thing, and everything's within spec. So actually, when they went to a newer 2005, 2006, they went to the cast crank. They changed their crank tolerances. They doubled the tolerances just to kind of keep themselves in spec. So those motors are kind of shady. The only issue that the 99 to 2001s really had was here is the cam plate. So the issue is these tensioners. So they're a spring-loaded tensioner, and they tend to wear out. And so that was a failing spot. They upgraded to a hydraulic tensioner setup with these hydraulic tensioners, no springs or anything like that, and that was the upgrade. So I've got a 2001 twin cam engine. I'm going to put an upgraded hydraulic cam plate in it, which eliminates that issue. It has a Timken bearing. It has a forged crank. And so as far as the bottom end goes, as far as Harley stuff goes, that's going to be pretty much as stout as you're going to get. So if you run a 96 or 103, the newer stuff, they just kept taking shortcuts. Even these bearings in here, bad roller bearings, so you upgrade those when you change cams. That's why a lot of Harley owners, when they put cams in, it's a good thing, because then you can get rid of the crappy stuff. You put new bearings, new cams, things like that in there, and you're going to get a lot more life out of it. So here is what the lifter blocks look like on a twin cam. So the lifters actually ride inside. This is a lifter for anybody that's not familiar. So these things tend to fail. The Harley-Davidson ones do anyways. And when they do, they make an awful mess. It costs you thousands and thousands of dollars. As I was telling a friend of mine, Evolution motors, blown Evolution motors, you usually fix. Blown twin cam motors, you usually replace. But I'm going to be building this one. So I'm going to be putting a big bore kit in there. I'm going to have the stock bottom end with a hydraulic cam plate, which is good stuff. And I'll put high lift cams, big bore engine. I go carbureted just because stick with what you know, the original wireless technology. Carburetors are not as tough as going to the Harley shop and getting them to plug their computer stuff in that's a huge cost. So if you're one of those people that wants to try to do more and more themselves, I would say by all means dig into one of these, get yourself a manual, get yourself some find all the specs, and just do everything the way the book kind of tells you. And I don't really use any Harley-Davidson parts when I'm upgrading this stuff. There's way better aftermarket stuff than Harley has to offer. So yeah, I'm going to be building this engine, and it should be relatively cheap. All right, so I hope some of that information kind of helped you out. So basically, the skinny of it is the first 3 years of the twin cam engine, they had the best bottom ends, the best bearings, the best crank. If you do the upgrade for the hydraulic cam tensioners, you're pretty good. You can just run those things, like get a lot of mileage out of them. Depending on how you ride, I'm an aggressive rider. I actually bring my stuff to the racetrack. I put a lot of miles on my stuff. I like horsepower. So that's kind of my choice. Is 99 to 2001 is my favorite twin cam engine. And depending on how you ride, Like if you're just out putting around, you're not like racing and you do all your maintenance, yeah, you can get them to live long. I'm curious to see, I want to hear back from you guys to give me your opinion on what your favorite engine, what your favorite bike is. Just try to help everybody out because I think the used market's really going to take off here in the near future. And the more we can help each other out, the better I think we're all going to be. So thanks for tuning in and keep her tuned.